Kids Loose, part 20 of 30, mentors. So I've said, I think in other videos, whilst you're the driving force behind your new business, pursuing your passion, there will be lots of other people to kind of help along the way. Mentors. And they take different forms, but the ones I'm going to talk about today are people that I found on YouTube that I found helpful, so that, these stories that I'm sharing on these videos, this suite of 30, are merely my experiences, but the things that I've done are based on information that I've gathered. And this list of people that we're going to talk through now, these have been the key ones in these past few years. So I've mentioned him before. Let's start with Simon Sinek. I was following him on, I think, Instagram and YouTube, and was sort of fascinated by his thoughts on leadership, this whole sort of premise that rather than being in charge of people, leaders should be caring for those in their charge. It was quite a humble way of looking at things, and it was a start. It kind of got me interested in something. I've not really ever formed many of my own opinions on stuff before. I've been kind of skipping happily through life, la la la. So he was the first sort of point of interest. And if you heard in part 1 video, I was midway reading his book, Start With Why, when I made that point. That book was the final catalyst in the final moment in me deciding to hand in my notice. So Simon Sinek, and interestingly, I suspect I don't follow him quite so much now, because the things that he spoke about 4 or 5 years ago, I believe he's still talking about now. He's consistent in his message. Now, I took that information. I'm an advocate for him now, whether I follow him or not, because the information, how many times do you have to repeat something before it actually goes in? There is science around this, I forget. Anyway, Simon Sinek. So I'm exploring. So he was one. Brené Brown, my friend suggested her to me. She's actually a researcher on vulnerability and shame, which sounds horrendous. And by her own admission, what an interesting subject that is. Ooh. But what she discovered in her research was that in order to live a wholehearted life, you need contrast, you need light and shade. And so to understand, no one could ever be brave without being vulnerable. So in the context of starting your own business, vulnerability, fear, braveness, all of those, it was useful to me because it was a brave thing to do. Or exciting, it depends on your perspective. But she's been a constant. In fact, she had a TED talk, Google it, because it's got millions and millions and millions of views. She talked about vulnerability and shame, and then, I've spoken before about imposter syndrome, got home and went, shit, I put this out there. Oh my God, who do you think you are? And she's plotting with her friend to kind of break into YouTube to kind of take the video down. It went viral, and, she's had a voice for her research ever since then, I believe. But yeah, she's an absolute fave. Who else do I love? Oh my goodness. So controversial one, Jordan Peterson. Now he has a lot of very complicated conversations now. What I loved about him, because I've gone down a few rabbit holes, you find a subject and it's like, oh, hang on a minute, come back. The things that I really loved were very early on, before he had, such a huge media presence. He had the forethought to record his lectures when he was at Harvard. And there are a suite of videos called Maps of Meaning, which was, it's probably 20 plus years old. But there's some really interesting stuff around psychology. And I've said before, I need to know what makes me tick. And part of that is understanding that you're not a complete loon, because, we're humans and we react to, he has a great example of, you're here, you have potential, you've got this goal, order, there's a way to do it, everything's going great. Knock this pillar out and you've still got this path towards your goal, knock them all out and you're thrown into utter chaos. And how you move through that, the experience, you know, the emotions that you might find, and knowing that you can move from this place of order to chaos. I probably explained it horrendously, but when I watched it, it made sense. So you can find those on his YouTube channel. As I said, some of the conversations that he's having now are way, you know, it would take me hours because I'd need to sit with a thesaurus. I can't understand the words, let alone the context for them. But his early stuff, yes, absolutely, was this interest in psychology. I mean, similar to Brené Brown as well, you know, this research on human beings and the things that make us tick. Love that. So that was kind of that's all research, sciencey stuff. But on the flip side, I also have very much enjoyed listening to Eckhart Tolle. Now, he's a spiritual teacher, and he has a very soft, I think he's Belgian, slightly accented voice. He's very calm. He's very thoughtful, considered in everything that he says. But I found his work fascinating. It may or may not be to you, but again, I've said before, the personal development that I've had to explore during this process as starting out as a small business owner, I've found really useful. And that moment of, you know, he talks about presence, awareness, being in the moment, that linked with, out of all else, yoga with Adrian. You know, I started practicing yoga probably nearly 5 years ago, and it's with Yoga with Adrian. But that's all linked to this sort of, yes, I've had a small business, but I also have explored a spiritual, I can hear people go, oh, spiritual. I've explored a spiritual path as well, and yoga presence, that's been one of them. Yoga with Adrian, she would always say, fill your cup, because unless your cup is full, you've got nothing else to pour out and share with everyone else. And surely your friends are worthy of your best possible self. So I love, at the heart of everything, you know, people might think, oh, Luce, it's a bit indulgent. No, I like to do the things that make me feel good, so that when I'm with my friends, my family, whomever, chatting to you, you know, I've been for a swim this morning with my buds, I'm feeling good. Yoga with Adrian, love her. Eckhart, yeah, lots and lots of videos on his YouTube account to explore. It might not be for you, but as I said, he was one that I, in fact, continually go back to. On the kind of spiritual mystic front, there's Luce, a yogi teacher called Sadhguru, Sadhgure. Now, I love listening to his stories, but I noticed quite a big difference between Indian yogic culture and Western culture, and I'm still exploring that. You know, the yogic sciences, and anyway, these are things that I found interesting. So, was there anyone else on my list? Those are the key people that I have sought out as mentors, whether they knew it or not, and they don't. I've messaged them, a few of them, no replies, but those are the people that I found to be useful mentors to me. I think tomorrow, just to expand on this, because, you know, it's useful, there are some books by some of these people. We'll go through perhaps books tomorrow, because I've jabbered on. How does it happen? 9 minutes in, and anyway, these are my favourite people. Go look them up if you haven't found them already. Come back tomorrow and we perhaps go through some of the books that I've read by these people that I've found useful. And so therefore you may as well.